In Daniel, chapters 8 and 9 present seemingly separate prophecies, but examined together, they reveal a single continuous timeline spanning 2,300 years. This connection is necessary because of a specific historical mystery. Daniel chapter 8 concludes with a 2,300-day vision that the prophet himself could not interpret, ending the chapter with the admission that none understood it. Chapter 9 provides the specific information needed to bridge that gap. In this later passage, Gabriel returns to Daniel to explain the vision that was left unfinished in the previous manuscript. Our objective is to trace the internal logic of these two timeframes. We will see how a highly specific 490-year section provides the data needed to test the validity of the entire 2,300-year trajectory. This structural link is the basis for the investigation. Connecting the two chapters lets us determine if the prophecy aligns with the documented record of history. To read this timeline, we must use the metric found within the texts of Numbers and Ezekiel. These passages establish a conversion rate for symbolic prophecy, where one day represents one actual year. Using this scale, the 2,300 days of the vision represent 2,300 historical years, and the 70 weeks are understood as a span of 490 years. Daniel 9 describes the 490-year period as determined for the Jewish people, relying on the Hebrew term katak. Katak means to cut off. This indicates the 490 years are severed from the beginning of the 2,300-year span. Both share the exact same starting point. Without establishing this shared starting line and the day-year principle, a precise chronological mapping would be impossible. The prophecy provides a clear historical trigger for the start of the countdown, the command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. While multiple Persian kings issued decrees regarding the Jews, the timeline requires the specific mandate that restored the city's full religious and civil autonomy. That decree was issued by Artaxerxes and is recorded in the 7th chapter of Ezra. It went into effect in the autumn of 457 BC. 457 BC is the fixed point in time that triggers both the 490-year and the 2,300-year sequences. The first 69 weeks of the prophecy are split into two phases: 7 weeks for the rebuilding of the city, followed by 62 weeks of waiting for the Anointed One. Converting those 69 weeks using our established principle gives a total of 483 years. Adding 483 years to our 457 BC starting point, accounting for no year zero, the timeline lands exactly in the autumn of AD 27. In the autumn of AD 27, at the River Jordan, Jesus of Nazareth was baptized. The New Testament text clearly records that he was anointed with the power of the Holy Spirit at this very moment. Both the Hebrew Messiah and the Greek Christ mean anointed one. The prophecy predicted the exact year Jesus would begin his ministry at his baptism. This represents the final week, the last 7 years of the 490-year period, spanning AD 27 to AD 34. The text points to the midst of the week. Calculating 3.5 years from autumn AD 27 brings us to spring AD 31. In the spring of AD 31, the crucifixion took place. The prophecy states that at this point the Messiah would be cut off, and the sacrificial system would cease to have its religious function. The 70th week concluded in AD 34. Following Stephen's stoning, the gospel message began to spread throughout the Gentile world of the Roman Empire. These 3 dates, AD 27, 31, and 34, align with recorded history and demonstrate the accuracy of the 490-year measuring line. When the verified 490-year section is subtracted from the total 2,300-year vision, we are left with a remainder of 1,810 years. If we resume our count from the AD 34 checkpoint and add those remaining 1,810 years, the timeline concludes in the autumn of 1844. The math that successfully identified the life of the Messiah follows the same unbroken line to this 1844 date. We must now define what the prophecy says happens at the end of the 2,300 years. Daniel 8 states, "Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed." This creates a historical problem. The earthly temple was destroyed by Roman legions in AD 70. By 1844, there was no physical sanctuary to cleanse. The book of Hebrews points away from earthly structures toward a heavenly reality. describing a true tabernacle where Christ serves. In the ancient Jewish service, cleansing the sanctuary meant the Day of Atonement, a day of judgment. Therefore, 1844 marks the beginning of the final phase of Christ's ministry in that heavenly sanctuary. This explains the great disappointment of the 1844 movement. Those who expected Jesus to return to earth that year were correct about the date, but they had misunderstood the location and nature of the event. The timeline stands as a single chain connecting the Persian Empire, the Roman-era ministry of Christ, and the events of the mid-19th century. The same logic used to calculate the historical arrival of the Messiah also determines the timing of the heavenly sanctuary service. The mathematical structure of Daniel 8 and 9 provides a specific internal chronology that can be compared against the documented history of our world.